Sorry about the mix up today. Hopefully everybody will find me here now that got it on the right Zoom here. Before we start with paragraph 7, I had something had come up during the week, and I want to make sure that you understand. There's an input sheet that you have to fill out for Bright to input your listings. And remember, that's a regional input sheet. That is not a Virginia input sheet or a DC input sheet or a Maryland input sheet or Pennsylvania. So they have questions that would be answered differently in different jurisdictions. So please only before you answer a question that you aren't real sure of, unless it's one of the mandatory questions, check with your broker. We have a fair housing problem that we're dealing with because on the input sheet it said, will the owner consider vouchers or not? And the owner said, no, I don't want a voucher. So they answered no. And so now, it's being investigated, et cetera, on an innocent mistake by an agent. But in DC, where this problem happened, it is a protected category. In Virginia, our statute changed this year in Virginia for fair housing, and source of income is protected if the owner owns more than 5 properties or 10% interest in 5 or more properties in the state of Virginia. So in Virginia, if they own less than 5, they have the option of not accepting a voucher. But, the agent saw the question and, just was answering all the questions on the sheet. Just like when we talk about agency, we don't have sub-agency in Virginia today because of our statute, but sub-agency is one of the inputs on this sheet. So please, before you answer something and you're not sure, check with your broker, because innocent mistakes can come back and haunt you. Excuse me 1 second. I want to close my office door here. Okay, thank you. So anybody have any questions about what I'm talking about with that input sheet? It is a regional sheet. They don't break it down, and laws are different in different locations. Excellent. Okay, let's go to paragraph 7 of the listing agreement, Form K1336. If you haven't downloaded it from NVAR, you will need to do that. And once again, this is back to basics. So we're just reading this together. So we make sure we've seen every word in these agreements. So this deals with homeowner warranty. Seller has the option to purchase a homeowner warranty, which can be in effect during the listing period that will transfer to the buyer upon settlement. Seller should review the scope of coverage, exclusions, and limitations, costs not to exceed whatever program you decide to use, and warranty provider to be whatever company. So if the owner is going to be offering a warranty in the listing, then they should take it out when they list the property, because the policy will cover the owner during the listing period. Now, that doesn't mean that the owner can sort of fake this out and lie about things to get things fixed for free. But if things do break during the listing period, it will be covered. And it doesn't take out of the time period that the buyer would get at the end. And most of these home warranty programs, if the property doesn't sell, then the seller doesn't have to pay for the policy because there was no settlement. But check with each one of your lenders and see what's covered. I had one widow and we took out these policies, and she had dual hot water tanks under her home, and both of them went out during the listing period. and they were both covered. And it would have been a major problem for us money-wise if we hadn't had that in place. So it's a good listing tool. Check with your different providers and see what policy you like, and put it in place before they start. Okay. Utilities, check all that apply. Hot water, oil, gas, electric, or other. I've actually had some systems that were solar. Number of gallons, don't guess, make sure you get it right. Okay. The air conditioning, oil, gas, electric, heat pump, or other, or zones. Now, my home in Mineral, I have central air and central heating with oil on the main level, but the upstairs is not central heat and air conditioning. That has electric baseboard in each one of the bedrooms, and I use window units up there in the summertime. So watch how you say air conditioning and check and not make the appropriate notes. So my appropriate note when I list my property, if I ever sell it, would be that central air is only on the main level, and I'll leave you the air conditioning units if you want it for the upstairs. Zones. With zones, I had a listing, new home listing out in Loudon, and the dual zone, and the main level was gas for the heat, and a heat pump on the upper level. So the zone heating was different even. So make sure you really get into that and question it. Heat pump, if they tell you it's a heat pump, check the unit and see that it is actually a heat pump and not straight electric heat. Because I don't know if you've ever had straight electric heat, but that meter will really spin around pretty fast in the wintertime. So err on the side of caution. Make sure it is a heat pump. The heating, oil, gas, electric, heat pump, or other could be solar and zones. I have oil heat. My tank is actually in the ground, which could be a problem in the future, but I'm not going to worry about it right now while I own it. Water supply, public, private well, or community well. And once again, double check a community well. I had one of those out on Wallwood Street out in Manassas. Everybody shares the same well. So ascertain, don't guess, right? If they tell you it's public water, I pretty much want to see the bill, etc. Same way with sewage, public, septic approved for X number of bedrooms. Now be careful with the bedroom thing. Got another case I'm dealing with now where the basement was finished, and the owner says I have a 5-bedroom house, but the county says they have a 4-bedroom house. They have a 4-bedroom house. That one in the basement is not a bedroom unless it has a where the window is access for a firefighter to get in no more than 3 feet off the ground. So it would have to have outside window well with the ladders and that type of stuff. So whatever the county says, go with that. Always call the county, give them the property address, double check what the septic is approved for. Now, the type of system, community, conventional, alternative, or experimental. So there can be a community system where everybody's stuff flows down to the one place and they maintain it and have an agreement in place, and people are going to have to participate in the cost of the maintenance. Conventional, that's what we call gravity flow. Alternative, if your system, if your ground does not perk, what they call perk, and that's where they come out, dig holes, put water in it, and see how long it takes it to go down through the soil. If the ground doesn't perk, the county might allow an alternative system, okay? And if they allow an alternative system, it's going to have maintenance requirements, etc. So when you list a property, and it's an alternative system, make sure that you find out all the rules and regulations for it, because the purchaser's going to need to know it. So some of the alternative systems that are out there is a mounted septic system. I know there was some of those out off Bull Run Road out there in Fairfax. Probably a sand filter system where they dig a big hole and put sand in is probably the best one in my opinion. But there are many different types. If they're approved by the state of Virginia, then the county has to allow it. But what in the world is an experimental? What is an experimental system? Okay, that's a system that's not approved by the government, but may be allowed by the county. Okay, so you might be able to go to the county and say, I've got this experimental system, solar composting being the most popular right now. And if you don't know how that works, you actually carry your stuff out of your house. You have a system inside. You carry the bucket out twice a week, put it in the system, and it has windows and it composts in the system. The county might allow that. So check when you list a property, is it alternative, but experimental is something new, relatively new out there. And experimental simply means it's not approved by the state of Virginia or the county, but the county's allowing you to use that system and trying it out. There's some pretty good videos on YouTube about these experimental systems. I don't think you deal with it here in Fairfax County, but you get a little bit further out, especially towards the mountains, where they have composting systems, et cetera. Solar composting is better because once it gets below 50 degrees, a composting system has a tendency not to work. But if solar, it seems to work pretty good with the solar one. So check it out. Okay. Section 32.1/164(1) Code of Virginia requires seller to disclose whether the on-site septic system serving the property is operating under a waiver of repair and/or maintenance requirements imposed by the State Board of Health. So if the septic system is operating pursuant to a waiver, then the seller must provide the buyer with the disclosure regarding validity of septic system permit prior to the contract ratification. Such waiver is not transferable to the buyer. So what the county has said, we'll give you a waiver to stay in the property. You can stay there, owner. However, when you sell the property, the next person cannot move in. That waiver does not transfer. They would have to solve the problem. So if it requires if it would require a new alternative septic system that failed, you're probably talking $25,000, $30,000, $40,000. So that's one of those 5 mandatory disclosures. One of the 5 mandatory disclosures that we've talked about in the past, where the seller, has 5 affirmative disclosures. One of them is the septic system waiver. It is a 1-page separate form. Make sure that the owner uses it if they are there on a septic waiver. And this will show up at settlement. It will be part of the title search that this validity septic system permit has to be recorded with the title. So it will show up. So might as well address the issue right up front. Seller represents the septic system is or is not operating under a waiver from the State Board of Health. Pretty self-explanatory there, I think. All right. Any questions about paragraph 8? You can unmute yourself and ask questions if you have any questions about it. Okay. Now let's talk about broker duties. Broker duties. Now these reflect our agency statute. Okay. So broker shall perform, and seller hereby authorizes broker to perform the following duties. In performing these duties, broker shall exercise ordinary care, comply with all applicable laws and regulations, and treat all parties honestly, not fairly, honestly. Okay. Now, what does exercise ordinary care actually mean? You'll hear the term fiduciary duties. I hear that thrown around quite a bit. And a fiduciary duty is steeped in common law agency. And that means that I have an absolute duty to my client, absolute duty. Okay. And so if I had an absolute duty to my client, I could not tell about problems with their property. Okay. And we had a major lawsuit about that many years ago. And that gave rise to what our statute is telling us. Ordinary care is not a fiduciary duty. It is statutory. So statutorily defined. And that is, what is the accepted practice of the industry in the area where you are working? Okay. So a judge is going to, if there's a lawsuit, sit and take a look at this and say, what would be expected in this area? It might be different in Southwest Virginia than it is in Northern Virginia. Okay. So exercise ordinary care, did away with that did away with that fiduciary duty of absoluteness. Okay. So 9A, broker shall protect and promote the interest of the seller and shall provide seller with services consistent with the standards of practice and competence that are reasonably expected of licensees engaged in the business of real estate brokerage. Ordinary care, right? So shall provide seller and services consistent with what's expected. And, you know, in lack of any other guidance, a judge may very well take a look at our code of ethics and say, what's expected by realtors? Even though someone may not be a member of an association and bound by the code of ethics, they will actually take the code of ethics and say, well, this is what's probably reasonably expected in the area. Of course, they'll look at other lawsuits that happened and how judges settled those, right? So it goes on to say here, seller acknowledges that broker is bound by the bylaws, okay, policies and procedures, rules and regulations governing the MLS, the Code of Ethics of the National Association of Realtors, the Code of Virginia, which is our statute, and regional rules and regulations for the electronic lockbox system. You are charged with knowing what all those rules and regulations are. So if you haven't read through each one of these, I would suggest you do. Most people join the board. They are given a copy of the bylaws, policies and procedures manuals. Well, I'm not sure that they've actually ever read through them, but it's a good thing to know. When I host a hearing or on a hearing panel for professional standards at the association, we have to look at the bylaws, the policies and procedures, MLS, Code of Ethics, lockbox rules. We have to look at all that when we have someone before us in a hearing. And to say, well, didn't know it was in there is not going to be a good enough response. Okay. Any questions about 9A? Okay, well, let's take a look at 9B. Broker shall use reasonable efforts and act diligently to seek buyers for the property at the price and terms stated herein, or otherwise acceptable to seller. Now, the price and terms stated herein, I think we discussed this previously, but you do not give the seller an exact price. Don't go in and say your house is worth $202,000, because if it then sells for 250, they're going to be coming back against you. What you want to do is do your market analysis, your CMA, your RPR report, whatever. Show them a range of values and have them check, what the value will be. Once again, I use a letter still today. My market analysis shows your property should sell between this amount of money and this amount of money. See attached RPR, CMA reports. The seller has selected the price of, and they write it in there and initial it. And in the event the property has not sold within 30 days, we'll re-examine our market analysis. Okay. I constantly send them updates anyway, but let them set the price. Okay. Or as otherwise acceptable to the seller. So we get a contract in and it's less than what they were asking, but they like the other terms and they want to sign it, then that's fine. To negotiate on behalf of the seller. Now, we had a case before us in a grievance hearing where the person read that they actually had the right to make decisions for the seller and negotiate and bind the seller. That's not what that means. Okay. You take everything back to the seller and then you negotiate with the other side in accordance with the directions you have received from your client. Okay. Now, this next one is really important to establish strategies for accomplishing the seller's objectives. Before you list a property, you've got to know what their objective is. Okay. And develop that strategy. That is directly from our state statute. Okay. So 2B, whether it's duties to a buyer, seller, landlord, tenant, etc. So would your strategy be different if I'm just thinking of selling and if I can get this much, I'll sell, versus I've lost my job, I can't make my next payment? Or I need to sell my house, move from my job, I owe more than what the house is worth. Each one of those is going to take a different strategy. And this is where you can differentiate yourself from other agents. I always tell people, if you want to go after listings, expired listings, etc., okay, then what you need to do is you need to identify the seller's problem and offer a solution. Just to call me and say, or send me something in the mail saying, hey, we have buyers for your home, or just give me a try. Why should I even listen to that? So identify the seller's problem, offer a solution, and they'll talk to you. When you go to the store and you use your card to get a discount versus the price they would have been asking, all that is to track and identify the items that you buy most often, so that when you receive from the store these coupons, isn't it amazing? It's usually for stuff that you would normally buy because they want you to come in for that item and buy other stuff. Or I just bought a new car, and in about a year, I'll start receiving notices from the car dealer. It's time for this service or that service. Or if you've had your car for like 5 or 6 years, you didn't even buy it from that dealer, but the dealer's researched and found out that you have a Volvo. Okay. You will start receiving unsolicited in the mail from Volvo dealers that you have this 50,000 mile checkup is due or whatever. And you wonder why. Well, they're going to send that out to everybody that owns a Volvo. And hopefully some of you will come in and have your service done. It's no different in our industry. Okay. They identified the problem. They're offering the solution, even offering a discount. right? So we need to develop that strategy for accomplishing the seller's objectives. The flip of that, if you're a buyer's agent, you have a duty to establish a strategy to obtain their objective. Okay. Probably two conflicting duties, so therefore can't really do that with a dual agency. To assist in satisfying sellers' contractual obligations, I still use processing folders, has everything listed in our sales contract. They actually sell these folders at the association buildings, and I think it's like $1.25 per folder, but it has everything on there that needs to be done in your particular case, so that you can make sure things are done. Send notices well in advance for different things that have to be done at certain times, right? Which would probably be, what about home inspection items, okay, that they've agreed to fix? When do they have to be completed? Well, technically with the addendum, they have to be completed before final walkthrough. But you know that the purchaser has the right to do walkthroughs for 7 days prior. So, stay with the seller, make sure they're getting these things done, give them guidelines and timelines, knowing that these people could be coming back 7 days before settlement. Any questions about that? And to facilitate the consummation of the sale of the property, that's what Virginia calls a settlement now, consummation. That's just like the CDs that they have to receive. It deals with the consummation of the transaction. Okay. Paragraph C, broker shall market property at broker's discretion, including without limitation, description, interior and exterior photos, in appropriate advertising media such as publications, mailings, brochures, internet sites, provided, however, broker shall not be obligated to continue to market the property after seller has accepted an offer. Okay. So Code of Ethics says you do not have to continue to market. So does our statute. However, get that in writing from the seller that they don't want any more marketing, because the contract can kick out. Okay. But generally they don't want anybody else in their property after they already put up with this disruption, especially with COVID. They don't want just people coming in, kicking the tires and looking if they already have an offer. The problem we run into is the different categories in the Bright MLS might not match up with this requirement if there's contingencies and whatever. So with a contingency, continue to show, etc. Once again, that's knowing the Bright system, right? Now, dealing with another situation that I've been contacted about, where the person that has the property listed isn't happy with the photos. Okay, it says they don't look professional. Well, it says in here in the listing, at the broker's discretion, okay, in photographs. But invest the money. If you're going to do photos, invest the money, get a professional photographer out there. It isn't that much money, and it looks better for you when you do have these on different sites and people can see professionally taken photos. Now, if you're good at it yourself, that's fine. And we have some agents that actually do that on the side, but make it as professional looking as possible for your seller. Okay. Paragraph D. Broker shall present all written offers or counter offers to and from the seller in a timely manner, even if the property is subject to a ratified contract of sale, unless otherwise instructed by seller in writing. So our Code of Ethics says you have to continue to submit all offers and counter offers to a seller until closing, unless they've waived that obligation in writing. Okay, well, that's code of ethics. Our statute says, and this language is directly from our agency statute, you have to present all written offers and counter offers to the seller, even if the property is subject to a ratified contract of sale. That's what our law says. Okay, so subject to a contract of sale. Now, it hasn't settled yet, may even have contingencies. So even though under paragraph C, you don't have to continue to market and show the property, okay? If someone wanted to bring an offer and they send it over, you have to take it to the owner unless they waive that obligation in writing, okay? Why would somebody do that? Because they really like the house and you're saying no more showings and we already have a contract, okay? Unless it's in writing from the seller. If you get a call from another agent saying, my party would like to submit an offer, you need to accept that offer and take it to the owner. Now you're probably saying, well, we already have an offer. Why would we want to take another offer to the seller? Well, the law says so, and it's their decision. So let's say that I had my house on the market for 700,000. I accepted an offer for 680. And other people want to, later want to bring another offer, a backup offer, etc. And you say, no, we already have an offer and we're not accepting any more offers. Now, and I didn't tell you to do that, the seller. And the buyer goes over and knocks on the seller's door and says, look, I wanted to give you $720,000 for your home. Why wouldn't you even consider my offer? You got a problem, okay? You got a big problem because you didn't give this, the seller didn't give you the instructions, no more offers to be brought, even though it's subject to a contract of sale. So if you don't want to have to take any more offers, get the owner to sign something in writing, no more offers. Okay, you clear on that. Don't have to market it, but we do have to what? We do have to take all offers, even if it's subject to a contract of sale. Now, you do get this better offer in. Make sure the seller understands before they sign that other offer, they need to talk to their attorney, okay? Unless that contract has a backup clause to the primary contract. So when we went through our sales contract in the different forms, we looked at the form for submitting a contract and being in a backup position, or the seller could counter to put somebody in a backup position, okay? If it doesn't have that clause in the contract you receive, they need to talk to an attorney before they accept this other offer, even though it is for more money, okay? And they can't just void the first contract. I've had people say, well, they said, just tell the other people to go away. We like this one better. It doesn't work that way, okay? They need legal advice at that point, okay? Now, our code of ethics takes us a step further, okay? So under statute, it says written offers or counter offers, which is reflected here in paragraph D. Our code of ethics says all offers. So if I receive an offer from another broker that calls and says, look, my buyer wants to know if your seller will consider this and this and this before we go through all this writing the contract. Do you have to let the owner know that? Yes. Okay, so I would say to the owner, we have this party that would like to offer you this amount of money on these terms and conditions, but they want to know if you'll consider it before they write it. I would take that to my client. Who am I to keep it from them? Okay, I would go ahead and say to my client, if you want to consider this, tell them we'll consider it if we see all terms and conditions in writing. Now we have something we can counter, or they could actually counter back orally. Remember, the contract only has to be in writing to be enforceable under the statute of frauds. But offers can go back and forth before it's even put in writing. Probably not going to happen in a market like we have today. But if you have a market where a house has been on the market for 9 months, somebody might want to, say, look, I'm only willing to offer 500, and you're asking 750. Just politely take it to the owner, get their response, respond to the other side. All right. E, broker shall not continue to market, show, and or permit showings after property is subject to a ratified contract of sale unless otherwise instructed by seller in writing. This I would go over with the seller saying, look, things can happen. If we continue to let people show your property and we get a backup offer, put you in a stronger position when it comes to negotiating things that the original come back with. But it's your choice, realizing that some of the categories that we have in right would continue to show. So discuss that with them. But I've found over the years, most sellers don't want anybody else coming in their house. They want to be able to leave clothes on the floor. They want to be able to leave dishes in the sink, not worry about the house being perfectly clean and everything when showings happen. So get it in writing from them. Best way to protect yourself. F, next page. Broker shall account in a timely manner for all money and property received in trust by broker in which seller has or may have an interest. I think that was pretty self-explanatory. The money goes into a trust account. Money never comes directly to you in your name. No property comes to you in your name. It all has to be in the broker's accounts, okay? Unless all parties agreed, it will be somewhere else in writing. Okay. G, broker shall show property during reasonable hours to prospective buyers, and reasonable hours are probably 9 to 8, okay? 9 in the morning to 8 in the evening. Shall accompany or accommodate as needed other real estate licensees, their prospective buyers, inspectors, appraisers, exterminators, and other parties necessary for showings and inspections of the property to facilitate and or consummate the sale of the property. Let's get this one straight right up front. No one can ever be given access to a property unattended without the seller's written permission, period. You cannot open up a house, leave an inspector there. You cannot open up a house and leave your buyer client there because you have to go somewhere. None of that can happen, okay? So no unattended parties without the seller's permission, no home inspectors left in a property, etc.
Larry, question.
Okay.
If we send an email to the client and ask them, say the appraiser would like to come in on such and such a date at such and such a time, and they respond by email, given the okay, would that be considered written permission?
I think that would suffice. Yeah, that'd be fine, because you can prove that you have something from them giving permission for that party to be in the property.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, and a lot of times the appraisers have their own keys, right?
Yeah, they do, but
Yeah.
this is just for anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I just wanted to know what that constitute written permission, an email,
Yeah,
and you save the email.
Yeah, save the email. Okay, and I think you're fine. Now, let me tell you, you should never let the appraiser go to the property without you there. The listing agent, okay? It's a perfect opportunity for you to meet and point things out to that party. Now, people say, well, we can't have any influence on an appraiser. When I teach the appraisal course for NAR, they talk about an appraiser package you should put together. Okay. I think you're doing a disservice to your client if you're not there to meet that appraiser. And in that package, I put my RPR report, I put plats of the property, any list of anything that the owner did to the property and the cost they spent, all that type of stuff. There's a whole list of stuff that would be good for an appraiser to have. You don't go and say, here, I don't think you know how to do your job. Just say, I put this package together for you. If you find it useful, you know, please
Yeah,
accept it. You
well,
know,
let me ask you this, Larry. What I do is I do something comparable. I just leave it, I leave a courtesy package for appraisal there. And it has a lot of the items that you mentioned, okay? But I haven't been there to meet the appraiser. I just call them and say, I left a courtesy package for you on the kitchen island or something of that nature. So, but you think you should physically be there?
I'm physically there, either myself or my partner Karen. One of the two of us are there to point out things to the appraiser or pointed out to us. Not walk around with the appraiser and point, but I think that if you're the seller and your agent does that, how impressed are you? I think it's another area to
Yes.
to
Impress,
differentiate yourself from
impress, yeah.
other agents.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, one more caveat. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, and I'm glad you mentioned this, okay? But if it's going to be like, an easy appraisal, you know what I mean? And in your estimation, after, a cursory review of all the information.
I'm
Now,
still showing up.
okay.
Okay. Because I'm representing my seller client. Okay.
Okay.
In an earlier paragraph, it said, uh, do what, do what's in the best interest as a strategy for accomplishing our seller's goals. So
Okay.
it's showmanship on my part, and I tell them that in my listing presentation, I bring up the fact that we will be there to meet the appraiser and
Right. Right.
different people. If I can't be there, a member of my team will be, or my company. Okay, so that gives them that assurance that hey, you got a contract, and I'm not that important anymore, right? So that's the reason I do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And another thing, I'm glad you brought that up because I would either do that or I would talk to the appraiser, get his email address, and then I would email him that packet. But
Yeah.
I see you're right. That personal touch, that's hard to exceed, and you're right. Well, thank you for bringing that information out, Larry.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So going on through this rest of this paragraph here, broker agrees that showing instructions to be shared in the MLS with other real estate licensees and their prospective buyers are as follows. Spell it out and make sure it makes sense. I've seen them that says vacant, just go, call listing agent first. Now, which one is it? Uh, you know, but buyer agents, whatever the instructions are, you have to follow. Even if it's a vacant property, if you don't follow those written instructions as given by the listing agent and the owner, then you are going to be in a violation of the code of ethics. Okay. And also remember, you cannot give out passcodes or get codes on your phone to open up lock boxes and give to other parties to get into a property. That goes back up to letting somebody in a property that's not accommodated. Okay. Now, broker shall or shall not install an electronic lockbox on property to allow access and showings by persons who are authorized to access the property. Not a combo box, folks. I know electronic lock boxes cost money, but the only thing the seller gave you permission to put up is an electronic lock box. And if you put up a combo box and somebody breaks into that box and breaks into that house, you're probably not going to be covered. So if there's going to be a combo box put up, add it in here that the owner gives the permission for the combo box. Generally, we put the combo box up to accommodate contractors, parties getting in there. That's the reason when it comes to a combo box for those type of purposes, I suggest that the owner buy a box over at Home Depot or Lowe's. They put it up, they give the combo to the party they're giving authorized access to the property, not me. You know, and I love it when I see in the remarks sections, the combo lockbox code. Okay. Now, if you've been around a while, you remember we called those SPI boxes, SPI, because the code was 2 to the left, 2 to the right, 2 to the left, SPI. I could open up any box I saw anywhere in the area because agents did not change the combo code. So if it's going to be one of those for access for contractors, et cetera, to get into the property, I'm having the owner put it up. I'm just a little bit overly cautious. Okay. And the last one, under 9, brokers shall or shall not install for sale signs on property as permitted. Seller is responsible for clearly marking the location of underground utilities, equipment, or other items that may be damaged by placement of the sign. It is their duty to call Miss Utility. You know they're not going to. So as a listing agent, make sure you call Miss Utility before somebody comes up to put that sign in, okay? Because if they hit a line, even though it wasn't supposed to be there, it wasn't buried deep enough, you're gonna have that problem. I was in Mineral this weekend and I was talking to the guy that owns the electric company across the street, plumbing supply, et cetera. And they were doing some work there, he's putting up some buildings, and Miss Utility came out and marked it and said, there's nothing there. And he says, I know there's phone lines there. They said, nope. So as soon as they started digging, bam, they hit phone lines. And the people, the house it goes to, both of them were on dialysis and they need those phone lines. And it was, you know, they had to scramble quickly to fix that. So, but if they hadn't checked it out and they would have hit those phone lines, it would have been a big problem. Okay. So anytime there's going to be a sign installed, take that extra step. Any questions about any of that we discussed here today?
Larry,
Yes.
you just said that we should not put the combo something like that locker, locks.
Well,
Agent should not put the locker.
Well, what did it give you permission to put up in this listing?
Lockbox only. Lockbox.
Electronic lockbox only.
Okay.
So the seller didn't give you that permission. How hard is it to break into those combo boxes?
Very
give
easy.
me a hammer and I can break in there pretty quickly, right?
Okay.
But if they break into an electronic lockbox, force their way in, which is much harder, and they access the property, you were given permission to put that lockbox up. So you're probably covered. Okay.
So if they want to if we want to have a lockbox, they should give us lockbox so we can put it up further.
Well,
No.
if it's going to be anything other than electronic, if you're going to put one of your own combo boxes up, then I would add to this paragraph that they give you permission to put up that combo box.
Okay, thank you.
So write it in there to protect yourself.
Protect it. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I know those boxes are a lot cheaper than the electronic boxes, right?
Right.
Okay. When somebody calls and says they're an agent and they want the combo box code, how do you know they're an agent calling?
You don't know.
You don't. So before you give it out, get their name and phone number. Pull up DPOR real quickly and see if they're actually a licensee, or you may just be giving a criminal the combo box number. And that's why with electronic lockbox, that takes you out of the loop.
Okay.
Okay. Or if the owner puts their own box up and they give out if they give it out, that's different, because you're not giving out that combo. Just be a little careful there. And even if it's a vacant property, they could go in and strip pipes and everything else out of a property. So, But we were given permission for the electronic box, right?
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, thank you. So far.
Okay, so Monday, we will do Ask Larry. We do have a guest speaker for about 20 minutes. But after that, I want to address some of the changes to the fair housing, to the forms, et cetera. So we won't have a duplication of what happened, with this poor agent that's brand new and, is dealing with the Justice Department. That's not a pleasant way to start out your real estate career, right? So I will see you guys Monday. We'll put what forms to download in our email that goes out. Okay?
Hey, Larry,
Yeah.
do you still go to UVA football games?
No.
Okay.
I watch.
I heard you're a distinguished alumni and, former great wide receiver. But I'm going to say this, Larry, you're even a greater real estate ball player, for lack of a better phrase. And I'm going to tell you what I do. I carry around a proverbial bucket, okay? And every word that comes out of your mouth, I catch with the bucket. And I do not let one word come out of your mouth hit the ground, okay?
Thank you, Larry.
Well, I appreciate that. That's
Coach, I'll tell Coach Epler you're doing good, okay?
all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I'll see you guys next class.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you for joining.
I'm sorry.
Bye.
I do have a question,
Okay.
but it's different. It's I am trying to do a CMA, but I couldn't find similar properties to my subject. And how can I give the price in that case?
Did you do an RPR report?
No, I was just doing in the Bright MLS.
Try to. Do you use RPR?
Yes, I do.
Try the RPR report because it'll pull up properties that might not be in the CMA report for them. So I always do both first.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll do
Okay.
that.
All right.
And can I have your email address, or maybe I can email you some questions, because I'm having trouble to price this home because I don't find any comparable similar to this.
Yeah, it's broker Larry 1 at fairfaxrealty.com.
Broker Larry.
The numeral 1 at fairfaxrealty.com.
Okay, thank you.
But also check with your managers and see if they can help you.
Sure. Thank
Okay.
you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you. See you guys Monday, hopefully. Bye.
Thank you, Larry. Bye. Talk to you on Monday.
Okay.
Thank you.